Summary of I See You Are Interested in Darkness by Ilarion Pavliuk. Ilarion Pavliuk's I See You Are Interested in Darkness is not merely a psychological thriller with elements of mysticism. It's a deep, multi-layered exploration into the nature of evil, the human psyche, and the profound impact of history on the present. The novel immerses the reader in the somber atmosphere of the Ukrainian hinterlands, where ancient superstitions intertwine with a harsh reality, and the line between the living and the dead, the rational and the irrational, blurs. This work compels contemplation on the dark corners of the human soul that lie hidden beneath the facade of everyday life, and how easily fear and ignorance can lead to the most horrific crimes. The setup, Buskiv Sad, an epicenter of fear. The story immediately plunges the reader into a disturbing, almost mystical atmosphere within the isolated village of Buskiv Sad. This place, lost amidst dense forests, impassable swamps, and cut off from the modern world, seems to live by its own ancient laws. Only echoes of civilization reach here, and the local inhabitants, who pass down archaic traditions and beliefs from generation to generation, live in a state of constant dread. The cause of this fear is the systematic, mysterious disappearance of children. These incidents are not isolated. They occur with chilling regularity, turning the lives of the villagers into a continuous nightmare. The locals, lacking a logical explanation for these events, fall into primal terror, inventing grim legends about a forest monster that takes children, as if a tribute to dark forces. These stories, passed down by word of mouth, heighten the sense of mystery and primal dread, transforming the village into a true epicenter of collective panic. It is into this hotbed of fear that the protagonist arrives, Detective Haister. He is an experienced yet unconventional detective, whose reputation is built on extraordinary intuition, deep psychological analysis, and the ability to untangle the most complex criminal puzzles that seem unsolvable to others. However, from his very first steps on this mysterious land, Haister senses that this case will fundamentally differ from all previous ones, extending beyond the scope of his usual professional experience. The village greets him not just with coldness but with outright hostility, almost aggression. The local residents, as if bound by invisible chains of fear and some shared silent conspiracy, avoid all contact, hiding behind locked doors and walls of total silence. Haister immediately feels that beneath this outward hostility and intimidation lies something far deeper, something belonging to ancient, archaic secrets rooted deep in the earth, breathing with the past, and which may be the source of current tragedies. 2. The investigation, labyrinths of the past, and a web of lies. The investigation for Haister transforms into a veritable hell, a test of his professional resilience and psyche. He faces total distrust, omerta, and a wall of silence. People refuse any cooperation. Their answers are vague, contradictory, and filled with allusions to the supernatural. The most common explanation is the aforementioned forest monster, a kind of smokescreen behind which the true reasons for the horrific events are hidden. The detective quickly realizes that the key to the enigma does not lie on the surface, but is buried deep within the core of the local community, in its convoluted history, strange customs, and, perhaps, in its dark sins passed down through generations. Andriy meticulously, step by step, begins to untangle this complex knot. He delves into the archives of Buskiv Sad, examining old records, church books, seeking any connections between past, long-forgotten events and the current disappearances. Gradually, a terrifying, almost apocalyptic picture unfolds before Haister. The village has an exceptionally dark and bloody past, associated with cruelty, treachery, unsolved crimes, and ancient massacres. These old events, like a curse, like invisible chains, shackle the contemporary inhabitants, becoming the source of their collective fears, deeply ingrained prejudices, and, perhaps, the true cause of their present misfortunes. The investigator begins to pay close attention to the strange, and at times frankly anomalous, behavior of some residents. He is particularly troubled by those who appear most devout, or conversely, overly reclusive and withdrawn, separating themselves from the community. Haister notices that in Buskiv Sad, in addition to official, nominal Christianity, deep-seated ancient pagan rituals and beliefs are deeply rooted, often conflicting with Christian values. These ancient customs, passed down by word of mouth from generation to generation, are an integral part of the local mentality and may be directly connected to the frantic disappearances of children. He begins to understand that what is at play here is not merely an ordinary criminal, but something far older, deeper, and more sinister than it initially seemed. It is a blend of religious fanaticism, ancient cults, and collective paranoia. A pivotal moment in the investigation is Haister's fateful meeting with Oksana, an elderly woman who is supposedly a local healer, seer, clairvoyant, or keeper of ancient knowledge. She, not directly but through hints yet very expressively, suggests to the detective that true evil is not external but internal, and that the root of the problem lies in the souls of the residents of Buskiv Sad themselves. She speaks of retribution for the sins of ancestors, of a karmic connection between generations, of how the past always catches up if it is not acknowledged, repented for, and released from its burden. These words strike Haister to the core and force him to reevaluate his rational, scientific approach to the world, opening a door to the realm of the supernatural. 3. The climax, the dark cult, human sacrifices, and Haister's inner struggle. Gradually, using his keen intuition, unique abilities in psychological profiling and analytical mind, Haister uncovers the trail of a secret, forbidden cult operating in the village under a veneer of piety. This cult, cloaked in the external attributes of Christianity, hypocritically uses religious rhetoric, but in reality practices horrific, satanic rituals involving dark forces, occultism, and human sacrifices. The shocking truth that unfolds before Haister is that the disappeared children are not merely victims, but become an integral part of these gruesome, bloody rites, which, according to the cultists, are intended to cleanse the village of sins, evil, or to provide protection from external threats and misfortunes. Haister manages to discover that at the heart of this cult, at the head of this criminal organization, stands an influential and highly respected figure in the village. This person masterfully manipulates the consciousness of the inhabitants, exploiting their primal fears, ancient beliefs, religious fanaticism, and detachment from the outside world. This individual is not just the organizer, but also the driving force behind all the horrific events occurring in Buskiv Sad. The perpetrators' motives prove to be incredibly complex, convoluted, and linked to their own deep psychological traumas, distorted worldview, megalomania, and a sense of impunity. They believe in their own exceptionalism, their right to judge others, and to be an intermediary between the world of the living and the afterlife. In addition to the external, extremely tense and dangerous investigation, a profound internal transformation of Andrew Haister himself unfolds in parallel throughout the book. He, a rational, pragmatic, skeptical person accustomed to logical explanations and scientific methods, is forced to confront something that goes beyond the scope of his scientific understanding. The encounter with mystical phenomena, paranormal events, and unspeakable human cruelty forces him to reevaluate his own established beliefs. He discovers the concept of evil not merely as a social phenomenon, caused by psychological factors or external circumstances, but as a metaphysical, active, destructive entity. The detective begins to understand that the darkness that interests him so much and with which he struggles is not merely the absence of light, but a powerful, sinister force hiding in the most secret corners of the human heart, manipulating consciousness, driving people to the most horrific acts, and destroying lives. His inner world fractures, but at the same time, he becomes deeper and more sensitive to the invisible aspects of existence.
EV, the resolution, consequences, catharsis, and philosophical reflection.
Despite immense difficulties, numerous obstacles, and threats to his own life, Haister manages to expose the criminals and stop the horrific rituals that were devastating the lives of Buskiv Sad's residents. However, this victory comes at an extremely high cost, leaving a deep mark on his soul. He not only witnesses the full depth of human cruelty, its primal, animalistic nature, but also realizes how easily darkness can take hold of people if they live in fear, ignorance, fanaticism, and are cut off from common sense and moral guidance. Ilarion Pavliuk's book does not provide the reader with unambiguous, simple answers to complex questions. On the contrary, it poses profound philosophical questions about the nature of evil, the influence of the past on the present, the power of faith and the destructive force of superstition, the responsibility of each individual for their own choices, and the idea that true good requires constant struggle. Pavliuk masterfully shows that true darkness is not mythical forest monsters, but the shadow that resides within each of us, in our hidden desires, fears, unresolved conflicts, and unrealized ambitions. The extent to which we recognize this inner darkness, and our willingness to fight it and prevent it from spiraling out of control, determines not only our own future, but also the fate of entire societies and humanity as a whole. I See You Are Interested in Darkness is not just a detective story with thriller elements, but a deep, psychological and philosophical immersion into a world where the line between reality and mysticism is blurred, where good and evil constantly wage an uncompromising battle for the human soul. The book leaves a feeling of unease, melancholy, and prompts reflection on one's own beliefs, the nature of human morality, and the search for the light of knowledge, empathy, and humanity in the struggle against both internal and external darkness that always lurks for humankind. It is a powerful and chilling reminder that true horror often hides not in the supernatural, but within human nature itself, in its capacity for incredible cruelty and ignorance.